Beyond Now Expert Talk by Siemens.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond Now. And in this show, we talk about the pandemic situation and the impacts on industries and what can we learn out of it. And today, the topic is the factory of the future is now. And this is all about collaboration, remote services, how we work with distributed teams and distributed people in the world. And I have two fantastic guests in the show. It's Daniel Klein, lead engineer at Siemens, and David Humphrey, research director at ARC Advisory Group. Hi.
Hello. Hi.
So, wow, what a topic. And we are, again, maybe almost in the middle of the second wave of the pandemic situation. And we all remember the first wave. So let's talk about the experience of the first wave and how we can, well, take the lessons learned out to manage the situation and support all the people out there doing their business. And by that, I would just ask Daniel, well, let's reflect a little bit the experience of the past. What was the situation on the first wave and how did COVID-19 impact your business and all these customer requirements?
Well, when the first lockdown happened, it was a shock. Were stopped, projects were postponed, or sometimes they were even canceled. And customers were very careful with new investments because on the one hand side, they didn't know what was going to happen. And on the other side, they had to keep their own business up and running. However, after a few weeks, something interesting happened because COVID-19, it was not a showstopper. Companies had to be very flexible all of a sudden. Companies had to change their products. The companies had to adopt and find new working modes. Let's take the example with masks. From one day to the other, there was a huge demand for masks. So companies in the fashion business or in the coffee filter business, they started producing masks, which means they had to produce a completely different product. They had to be very flexible, they had to be very fast, and they had to, well, adapt to the new situation very quickly. And in the end, this is, well, exactly where digitalization comes in and where digitalization helps our customers to quickly react to new products and market changes.
Yeah. And even like from my experience, what I know from industries, they don't like uncertainties and they don't like surprises and stuff like that. But in this situation, it was full of this. So how can we achieve higher flexibility in production to adapt quickly to such new situations?
Well, it's exactly the way you say that. Flexibility means a quick adaptation. And to get a very efficient production in a short period of time, digitalization can be one of the game changers. And let's take again the example with the masks. If you switch from coffee filters to masks, you first of all have to make sure, well, how to set up your production. If you have a digital twin, you can quickly evaluate new plans. You can quickly see what effect changes have on the production. And so you are much faster than, well, just the conventional, if you do it the conventional way by trial and error. Then if you go down to the machine level, all of a sudden you have to, well, reprogram your machines. You have to commission new machines. Which means you can do it, well, the conventional way again with trial and error, or you do it in the virtual environment with simulation to speed up the engineering process. And of course, also connectivity, the shop floor connectivity can help you to evaluate the changes, to, well, get the information from the machine to a central control unit and get it to the cloud to make the information available for all the other stakeholders within your company, or even for the product development. They will quickly see, well, what changes they have to do to the product to make it more efficient in production.
Wow, thanks, Daniel, which is a good point to ask the analyst few. And David, just can you tell a little bit more about how do you see, how has the lockdown amplified turning industries towards digitalization?
Well, the lockdown in the first wave of the pandemic certainly made a lot of manufacturing companies aware that of the benefits of digitalizing parts or all of their business. At the same time, it also exposed some cracks in the structures and in the processes of many companies. I'll name an example. We conduct end user surveys at ARC in order to gather data for our research. And we conducted one on cybersecurity. At the start of the lockdown in March, many manufacturing companies were suddenly overwhelmed by reports of remote access anomalies. These systems are configured to detect unusual behavior, and it was certainly unusual when dozens or even hundreds of employees started logging in remotely from their home offices and accessing sensitive production information. Many were blocked at the beginning, and cybersecurity teams had to quickly fix the situation and then to figure out what additional measures were necessary to allow people to continue working from their homes without compromising security. And for me, this is a good example of how technology and human behavior remain closely connected, even despite digitalization.
Yeah, and even like I remember the time as well when everybody was forced from one day to another to move the whole processes in the home office. And I've seen a lot of customers doing that quite well. It was surprising for them as well that you can run IT projects in such speeds. So if we look, and this also impacted, for example, the supply chain processes and all in behind. So, David, what was there so impressive to you?
Well, for many companies, the lockdowns caused shockwaves that cascaded along the supply chains. This is known as the bullwhip effect. It's a very well understood phenomenon in supply chain management. It's new, but it was quite a shock because everybody stopped at once. Well, most companies have been working for years to optimize their supply chains. Digitalization today offers the tools and the technology that make possible the next big step to really improve cooperation among partners by providing real-time access to critical information and helping them to standardize their processes.
Yes, and it's a good point because I had the same experience like when all the companies went into the home office. I mean, I was amazed about the speed up, how many companies did it very well in quick speed up, but as well about all this cybersecurity issues and stuff. So, David, let me play the devil in this topic. Will digitalization really increase the resilience in industries, or do we just shift the critical dependencies towards new digital service providers?
Well, digitalization is definitely hardening manufacturing processes and so increasing the resilience that you mentioned of manufacturing companies. But I wouldn't refer to them as dependencies. Instead, I would say that digitalization creates partnerships that weren't possible in the past. By helping manufacturers to better understand their equipment and processes with real-time information, digitalization not only adds flexibility and visibility to manufacturing processes, it also makes possible completely new business models, allow companies to work more closely with their suppliers and customers than they did in the past.
Okay, and Daniel, like looking towards your Siemens perspective, now from your learnings and your experience, how will digital services at Siemens will look in 5 years from now?
Well, this is a difficult question because if you have a look at the landscape or the status of the digital transformation in the different companies, I would call it really heterogeneous because we have those companies who haven't started their digital transformation yet. So for those customers, we will still offer our 3 steps: consult, implement, and then optimize, where we build an architecture with the customer to put it, when we break it down into feasible projects, we implement the projects, and in the end, we're going to help them to optimize, to continuously optimize. But on the other side, we also have the customers who've been investing in digitalization for many years, sometimes even for more than a decade. And for those customers, the business models and the business around digitalization, it will be different. For example, I think that the different technologies, which are today often just, well, islands, single islands, they will come together to build one architecture, one solution, and then we will build business around that. For example, simulation and also the real production, they will come closely together. So, for example, you will have the ability to run a simulation model in parallel to your production. And then new businesses come up with maintenance of the digital twin, who does the continuous optimization. So I really think that there will be an exciting business around the digitalization with the existing solutions, but also with the new trends.
Yeah, cool. And we are almost at the end of the showtime. And I will just give you the opportunity of your, let's say, famous final last words. And let's start with David. So what are your final conclusion about this topic and your last words?
Well, digitalization offers a lot of promising trends. It also offers a lot of technology. And believe me, I love technology. I love technology for technology's sake. I love buying it and implementing it and seeing how it works. But it has to have value for industry if companies are going to invest in it. And for me, the most promising trend, Daniel talked about it already a little bit, is optimization. But manufacturing companies have been obsessed for decades with optimization. This is not new. What digitalization is doing is opening the floodgates of completely new ways to optimize every phase of a manufacturer's business, not just parts of like we had before, but really end to end, the complete product life cycle. Finally, manufacturers are tapping into process information that's been there the whole time, but hasn't been easily accessible. And they're collecting it, they're analyzing it, and they're starting to do valuable things with it. And that's the real valuable part about it. But most importantly for me, companies have to digitalize, not just to get ahead, but to catch up to a certain level to be head to head with their competitors. Remember that the rest of the industry is digitalizing too.
Yeah. And Daniel?
I completely agree with that, what David said. And I also want to point out that COVID-19, it was not the showstopper. It was a trigger or a catalyzer for digitalization. And with the help of digitalization, we offer new possibilities to optimize, to be faster, and in the end, to be more competitive.
Yeah. Gentlemen, let me wrap up a little bit what I've learned and heard today. So first of all, I like it that this is not about technology in sake of technology, that this digitalization is about flexibility, speed up, and about as well to secure the processes and the supply chain and stuff like that. So what I see from the pandemic and from the talk with you together is that we are, of course, stepping into a new time. With new experience, and now we can use this experience to make more and better competitive industrial players and support the customers. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Welcome.
Siemens.